Hey Miguel, good morning from me. Morning for you as well. And Alper, where are you based out of again?
I'm in
Oh,
Seattle.
Seattle, that's right. Oh, and actually, one quick sec. What I'll do is I want to thank you both for coming on to this. And I'm realizing gave you, there you are, just the wrong name. So I'll read. All right, perfect. Here you go. Quick logistics check. But thank you both for joining today. Miguel, I know you've been on before. Alper, welcome for the first time onto the stream. It's something that I really like to do in terms of being able to bring on additional people from the community and especially nowadays, people involved with Miguel's team and anything related to the core visuals developments that we've been having over the last couple of years at this point. And I think this is the third time, Miguel, that you've been on talking about this stuff, if I remember correctly.
I'm pretty sure, yes, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one, I think there's some exciting stuff to not only focus today on talking about some of the things that have happened in the last quarter and maybe anything that people have missed, but also just the core visuals board, the vision board that you finally got out the door. And I know that's been something that you have thought about for quite a while, and then even spent quite a bit of time, I'm sure, between you and your team to build that out because there's it's to a degree a shining example, I think, of a lot of the new features that are available while talking about those features at the same time. So there's a bit of a fourth wall kind of breaking with this report because it leverages the features that it announces as things that have either that are in development or have been released. So I think that's kind of a cool integration that you have with the this thing that was built out just using Power BI.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was necessary. It was an asset that people were really asking for. We had the strategy to always launch some kind of preview features in multiple stages. So then when we were developing and shipping something and people were really angry, hey, why is this missing? We needed a dashboard like the vision board that can help them to see, hey, this is the items that we are launching right now, but there are more pending. So don't panic. This is not the final product. And now I think having this information makes people seeing where are we, like where's exactly where we are going and how things will be shipped. So communication, clarity, and
Exactly.
transparency.
And I think you hit the point right on the head, which coming from like the community perspective, having a place where they can go without needing to be emailed questions on what's coming out and something for people to review, I know has been asked for a long time. And even I multiple times have gotten questions like when is this coming out? And like, all right, I remember
Mhm.
talking about this. I didn't write it down, so like let me go figure out what that date is. So just having that all laid out in terms of a roadmap, I'm sure is really helpful for people who know what to expect and when for some of that stuff. So hopefully that has lowered the amount of questions that you get, at least regards to timelines on everything.
Oh yeah. It actually it helped instantly. Like I used to have a lot of questions every day. Now is being reduced like 80%, which is absolutely amazing. The other part is in the dashboard. Right now, the vision board only shows you the vision, but we're still missing the roadmap. In the roadmap, you can see month by month what are the features that we are planning to launch. So then you can have more understanding what are the features that, for example, the new card will launch in April or March. Obviously, all this information, and I think I have a disclaimer that says everything can change. So even that roadmap is not official. It will be subject of change if we find out that something needs to be polished. So then we might be able to push some deliverables the next or the following month. But at
That's nice.
least
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, but at least with that view, that they do not need to go to every single feature and then figure out what is coming, which is exactly what right now people have to do. Go one by one and see what is the status.
Well, then at least now too is anytime you actually get these questions anymore, you can just immediately like, I got a link. Here you go. Everything will be answered that you need to do.
That's what I do. Here's the link. Well, sometimes even I go to the place where they're asking and I just highlight like, here is the whole thing, and please
You
vote.
at least show
And you,
them the menu or something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. so much easier.
And before we actually, I would say, dig into the core visuals vision board, from both of you, and maybe I'll start with you, Miguel, and then go to you, Alper. If you want to start with a brief introduction to kind of who you are, what you do, and then you can dig into kind of the demo and everything.
Of course. Well, I am Miguel Myers. I am the product manager for core visuals and report experiences. I manage the data visualizations that are in the visualization pane, like those ones that we see by default. I do not own any custom visuals or anything like that, just our visualizations. Even from those visualizations, I do not own AI visuals, which is the smart narratives, the composition tree. I believe I do not own Q&A and key influencers. So neither R or Python. So there are some visualizations that even though that they are in the gallery, I do not own. The rest, they are part of my umbrella. For the report experience side, I own the panels, like this new on object screen that is coming, the ribbons, and other interactivities like the tooltip, drill down, drill through, and etc. So there are other experiences that affect users when they consume and when they create reports. That as well is part of my ownership. And that's basically it. I've been PM for 2 years. Actually, this month is my second anniversary being PM.
Oh, heck yeah!
Congratulations on that.
We're happy to have you too.
So it sounds like I mean, your role is certainly expanded because it was originally just like the enhancements of the visuals on the page, but it since essentially broadened and expanded to just the report layer. So anything that is almost everything that's report scoped for the most part. Not all of it, because I'm assuming field parameters, is that like would that be owned by Jay still?
By Jay, yes.
Yeah,
that's correct.
It's a report feature because it's done at the report layer, but because it's DAX related, I would assume it's handled by him.
That's correct. And it was a very strategic move. At the beginning, I was really scared because now I own 2 places and then they are huge. But no, it's very strategic because in the past, core visuals were depending on formatting settings, obviously for the format pane. And we were always relying on the Canvas team to get authorization on how we will do our stuff. And it was always really hard to get 2 PMs aligned. 1 PM was more focused on let me get things. I mean, in the previous objective, it was more about how can we have less to do more. And my mentality was, no, we need to have more to have more. So it was always a fight and trying to having that balance, right? But now that I do own both places, I can really bring a balance and I can see things from both sides and keep things aligned. So I can make things a little bit fast. I can move things faster than before. I think it was a smart decision from Mohammed.
That does make a lot of sense, yeah. And just on the general fact, as you said, where everything that needs to be added to a visual, like it either needs to be on object, which that has its own conversations, but like it has to go into the it has to go in as a menu, a button, or some other thing in the format pane. And if somebody else owns that, it's a constant. Like I would imagine that would be a very slow back and forth development. So it does make sense that now you own both of them and you can keep them very in sync with each other without having things missed or lost nearly as much as it would otherwise. So it makes total sense. But yeah, I'm happy to see that the values paid off so far and that they have continually shifted your responsibility and role to a broader thing to allow you to accomplish what you need faster. And Alper, if you want to get a little brief introduction from you, that would be awesome as well.
Sure, of course. I've been I'm a senior software developer. Changed my title to senior data visualization engineer on the Power BI core visuals team. So I work with Miguel a lot. I've been at Microsoft for just about 7 years now, and I came here by way of finishing my PhD actually in data visualization from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And so I kind of grew into this role. Now I'm kind of the visuals component owner. So a lot of the code decisions are like how other features interact with visualizations. I help them make their dreams a reality. And so I'm being kind of part code monkey and then part also helping to influence product decisions. Like I'm still keeping up on some research, and like recently I've been working with Microsoft Research on ways to better make data visualization accessible, or data experiences accessible to people with who are blind or have low vision. So I'm trying to keep my hands in all the pots, but at the same time push these features forward. I'm happy to answer any or get technical, complicate anything that Miguel brings up.
And I'll definitely leave time at the end of our talk today, because there's already a good number of questions that I'll have queued up for later. But I did drop your link on some of the research that you've done over in the chat. But just one last question out of curiosity is, like, yeah, since you work with accessibility a lot, I'm assuming you've had a few conversations with Megan Longoria on some of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like many different people, like just to make sure that, like, because there's so many things that we could do. And the really cool thing about accessibility and what gets me really excited is that it's not just like, let's help everybody understand the data. It's really like that's what really drives me, and like how working on a tool that makes visualization is that it makes data accessible to everybody. And it's everybody regardless of their ability, their dexterity, their knowledge of visualization, all this stuff. Like this can all be wrapped under accessibility. So if you do a good job with accessibility, all of a sudden you make everything work. And like you don't need to know how to write SQL, right, to get insights out of data, stuff like that. So yeah,
exactly. No, and I'm very on board for the make data accessible for everyone. And my favorite feature, at least, that's come out from the accessibility perspective in the last few years, is the unique sort and hide order between the tab and the standard selection pane and the tab order. And then the fact that you could put dynamic formats like the measures, the FFX button for DAX text into the alt text. Both of those, I think, did a huge leap upwards of being able to properly configure a report page. The one thing that I am sad about is I wish between the tab pane and the selection pane, I could group objects in the selection pane, but ungroup them if I need to in the tab order pane, because you have to tab into the groups to get in, to get to levels.
Right.
And that is I would say it's paramount on organization. For any typical report page, you want to group stuff together.
Yeah.
But you have to have everything ungrouped if you're going to do custom tab orders and stuff. It just doesn't work well for tabs.
Right.
So that's my one last pipe dream someday is that hopefully you can completely separate grouping between the two. But it's a lot better than it was. So I'm happy that we have had progress on that.
No, that's good feedback too, because it's like what we're going for with that was like hierarchical organization. So you can think about like headings in a document, right? You have different levels of headings. So it's like, if you have more groups and they're more nested, then it's kind of doing that structure. But it kind of mixes the visual organization and the logical organization. I can get that.
Exactly. And I keep seeing questions come up. So let's use this as an opportunity to hop into, say, the vision board. And what I'll do is question for the audience, questions that are coming up related to what's being shown. Anything that you already have in the queue, I will try to ask those at the appropriate time. You can also continue to ask questions for there. And ones in here that are maybe generalized and didn't get discussed during our demo and conversation with the vision board, we will have a Q&A at the end to kind of go through those ad hoc questions as well as we wrap up. But if you're ready, Miguel, I can flip over to your screen and we can get started.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
All right. Well, so this is the Core Visuals Vision Board. I believe many of you are already aware of this asset. One thing that I can say is this is basically the summary of all feedback that we have gotten along these years. What the customer advisory team helped me was to get all the information from Fabric Ideas into one single place. This is just to give you context. So I can review everything that comes every day, and then I will read one by one. And I'm talking about thousands of thousands. So I need to read one by one, and then once I read each of these ones, I classify them with a very special code. Each of these codes are related to each of these milestones or epic ideas. So what I do is I really read each one, put them as relevant because that belongs to our team, and then I classify it. This goes into the Power BI file, and that Power BI file gets the amount of votes. So when you see all this information, I basically took a lot of those ideas, put them into one single epic, and then consolidate them all of them in one single place. So here you can see them, the ones that are part of the new car visual. That's how the vision board was created. However, there are other core visuals that people haven't even requested because one, they do not know the impact that they have on top of other requested ideas, and I have created them just to make sure that they are there. Other ones, like for example, the gauge, multiple things that we want to do for the new car visual, for example, having multiple gauges in one container is something that obviously not many people voted because they didn't know that was necessary. But once we did for the car visual, it was more than obvious for us to start allowing that functionality for the gauge too. And since then, people are now voting for that particular option. So that's how these core visuals was created originally. And the way to navigate through it is through the navigation hub, where you can see multiple categories. We have the callout visuals, which is the gauge Cartesians that contains multiple components of the Cartesians. Part of whole visuals, which actually is all about the pie donut chart and tree map, metrics and table, filters and slicers, styled options, which I believe today Alper is going to give us good news about the plans that we have for themes, for example, that he's in charge, and as well as some condition formatting options, which one of the major ones that people are asking over and over again is how they can automatically auto-select something in their slicers. Like maybe I want my slicers to always select the last date. I don't want anyone to go to the report, select it, and then save it so then everybody can see the latest. But I want the slicer to do it by itself. So that's part of the conditional formatting work. And then we have interactivity, which talks about tooltips, filter
Just
capabilities.
one quick random question on that, just for the last one. The auto date pick.
Mm-hmm.
On that, yeah, just curiously. So is there a way to do auto but with the option of offsets? So always pick the latest date -1. Always pick the latest. So basically, can you apply the auto but be able to just say, go forward or backwards by X number of days on whatever today is, I'm assuming this would be based off a model refresh, right?
Yeah. Well, it would be based on that, but as well, you can put your own logic. There is an idea as well to
nice.
improve the amount of strings. Like for example, we added the text ones no long ago, like two years ago in January or February, Alper, if I'm not mistaken, but I believe it was 2 years ago. So we added the contains, starts with, like we have multiple text strings in the condition formatting dialog. Now we need to bring date time. So now you can say before, after, between, next, this, last, etc. You can use those parameters to then later on define your own auto selection. So it doesn't need to be the last date. It can be auto select everything between this date and this other date. Like you can come up with your own rules. Does that answer the question, Reed?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Just for whatever the rules are for the dynamic selection. So that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see, there is dependencies here. So we need to do some work before that. And you can see the advanced strings, which is this, is necessary for the auto selection to be more effective. So there is in every feature, we have this kind of like progressive bar that tells you why we are not doing some work. And the reason of that is because people are asking, hey, why are you doing this kind of feature if it's useless? We were asking for auto selection forever. Well, the reason is the features that they are saying we are launching is the foundation for the ones that they want to get later on. So we need to do things in a progressive and holistic manner to do not make things harder for anyone, for reports that already exist that we can break really easily, and for engineers to do not recode everything again because we didn't think about future improvements. So as well, this is giving them. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to at least inject a couple of the questions that are in the queue into here. So this one I think is good because we're showing there's so many things already in here, and I actually like this question from Zoran, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Hopefully, if all of the ideas were frozen today, how much time would basically how many years would it be until everything was implemented? If you were just to put a approximate, my guess, if I was to guess, 2.5 to 3 years for everything, every single item to be finished out of preview. It would be a guess.
That's confidential. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because once we have and Alper, please keep me safe. Once we have some kind of foundation in the code, it will allow us to then scale that to other features that right now, if we start from scratch, will be very complex. It will take us too long. So we need to really understand that foundation, fix it, make it more consistent, and then reuse it everywhere we can. So then we can move faster in features that are moving that are further away. So I believe it's hard to tell until we get that foundation ready. Once we get that foundation completely stable, then it will be so much easier for us to determine how long that will take. And I'll let Alper. Alper is the main engineer in the team, so he can answer that much better than me.
No, I mean that's a great point, Miguel. And this even helps us when we're organizing our work, right? And so the big thing is that two of the big things that we have been working on are the card visual and the new slicer visual. And the infrastructure that's even shared between those two things that lets us do small multiples. Now, when all of a sudden when we get to slicers, it's like, okay, we've already done a bunch of those formatting settings. Let's share that across. And a lot of this work was kind of PM and design oriented, right? Is to make sure that our formatting options are kind of shared in between. So if I can put an image by my we call this a tile slicer inside, but it's effectively the list slicer, but the tiles are what drive the cards too, right? When you have multiple cards in a card visual, those are tiles too. So the formatting options that you can do there, you should also be able to do in the filters and slicers. And so it's kind of at the same time and this is part of the reason we decided, hey, instead of I don't want to pick on Facebook, but in my developmental years as a software engineer, you saw how Facebook changed their interface from this to that, and all of a sudden it was bam, and then everybody's like, what's going on? And they all freaked out, right? We didn't want to have that transition from, oh, you're used to the slicers and the cards that you're using now. We think we know what's better for you. Let's not force you to do it, right? So that's why we kind of started everything from scratch, but now we're starting everything from a shared infrastructure and this shared kind of design formatting. I don't want to call it a language, but it's the idea that, if the infrastructure, all the stuff that we're doing is kind of shared, then that kind of naturally translates to how you format things. But it is kind of this staged process, right?
I love the example Alper is giving us. People wouldn't even realize the connection that the small multiples for the new card visual has with the list slicer, which is this one. But they are so connected, and the way that they manage each of these components and the controls, the code itself is completely is very well shared. Whatever we do in one place it might affect the other one. So the more we progress in one, it will make progress to the other one as well. So that's what I meant. There are multiple things that right now is taking us long, and people are saying, hey, the new card visual has been as a preview feature for almost 1.5 years. What's going on? Well, we want to make sure that this card visual is perfect, or not perfect, but well done, because whatever code we're using will be then replicated. And if we make a mistake here, that mistake will go everywhere else too. So that's why we are making sure that right now things are good enough to then scale it, which means you might find at this moment, in these last 2 years, things are moving slower, but that will allow us to then move faster once we pass that stage. Again, it's kind of unknown territory because I believe I am bringing, since I joined the team, I'm bringing a different perspective of how to deal with data visualizations that was never implemented in this way before. So for all of us, engineers, designers, myself, this is new. So we are all in this journey together. That's why the necessity to provide clarity, transparency to the community so they know exactly what we are doing and where we're going.
Well, as you mentioned too, the shared libraries between items and those initial assets, once they get built, will very quickly accelerate everything else getting done. Like, it's to your point, Alper, of the fact that that new slicer and the card are very, very, very similar. Like they have all the same features pretty much of the card design, and that is the same interface between the two, because they're basically just squares, and the only difference between one and the other is one is clickable and the other is just essentially a card to display information, but they're nearly identical in many other aspects.
Yeah, that's for look. Even in the progress bar, you can see that before doing the slicers, we needed to do the card visual, so the dependency is right there.
Exactly.
So, well, to continue the journey into the core. Do we have any other questions from the community?
Nothing on topic for this. We can keep going.
Okay, so I hope that answers the question. Well, Jojo, just to continue, I was talking about interactivity, and here, as you can see, we have drill mode and drill through and sorting. These are really important components, require more investigations. I cannot just come up with a lot of ideas and summarize them and come up with features. I really need to dive deep into these guys and then come up with like related epic ideas for the future. So that's why right now they're blocked, but later on I'll have conversations with architects and engineers to make sure that that's unblocked, so then you can see what is coming for those two. Canvas, this one is a little bit, how can I say it? It doesn't belong to the core visuals, it belongs to the Canvas team, but now that I am the Canvas team, I just put it in there. So in the Canvas wallpaper is a stuff that we want to do as well. The visual container is the visual that holds all the information inside. I think as well is a really important component for us to improve. And then there are new visualizations. Some of these new visualizations is nothing else that we are doing other work. And by the way, we can make, we can add stuff for the new visualizations. For example, when we improve the ribbons in the columns and bar charts, we were able to make huge enhancements on the ribbons that we didn't have. As well, once we were doing the line and area enhancements, we were able to very cheaply introduce the 100% area chart that some people were asking for. And once we do, for example, improvements for the primary axis, we might be able to do support for histogram support. And stuff like that. So this is basically other visualizations that have the potential to be created once we do the other work that is reminding for us to do first. Elements is image, buttons, text boxes, and other stuff. Again, I need to continue investigating on this part. That's why elements is right now blocked, but basically are anything else that are not visualizations. And the roadmap, which is what I said, is another section, just like a visual insights, but this section will give you better idea of how we are planning our features month by month. And the idea is to do this every 3 months. So then you can align with this webinar that we might have. And as well, it will allow us to do adjustments and do not keep people too tight into whatever we're saying here. So I'm gonna make sure that they understand that this is an estimation and it's subject to change, as I said before. Each of these selections contain the epic ideas, as you can see here. Each of them can be organized in the way that we might be able to do them, but not necessarily. Sometimes we might find, like we find out that this one can come first, then the one here, It's just like 5 stages that we believe if we finish them, the visualization will be in a very mature state. Each of these ones will have icons to really quickly tell you if they are finished or if they are in progress. This is a great example of things can change. So we were having conversations of supporting sparklines to the new car visual.
Mhm.
And as you can see here in the feature list, it says sparklines will first become GA for table and metrics, and then we will take that code and then we will use it for the new car visual. However, after multiple investigations, we realized that that won't work. So we might have to create another feature for to show these trends. Until that's completely, like, we still work, talking about it and realizing if that's true. Until we have a green light to use the sparklines or not, I will remove or I will keep this one. So that's another of those parts where sometimes things will change. And if we cannot use the code, then this icon, instead of being under development, it will go back into, it will be, I believe, is ready for development. So things can change that dramatic. So that's one important piece. People can still voting, and that will allow us in their same roadmap, people can see what are the features more voted, and as well they can see what dependencies they have, because like I show you with the auto selection, so there are 2 dependencies, and even we can even find more dependencies. So even that maybe is the top 1, they can see that there are 3 other features that are blocking that feature. So they like, we might need them to vote on those ones. So then we can show that to our leaders and say, hey, our community really need this feature and we need to prioritize it. And that will allow us to move our priorities and focus on what is more voted.
Well, and I think being able to get that agile feedback. One, I love the fact that you include the click to votes. I think that's really nice to be able to have people look through this and immediately just give essentially a +1 to some of this stuff if they want this to get higher priority or precedence for some of those items.
Yeah. They can still, like, we do not want to reinvent the wheel. We want to make sure to use the infrastructure we already have. People can still using the Fabric community ideas.com to vote. And if they want to share any information, they can comment. So then we will just use this area to always track comments, to see what people like the most, etc. So we will continue using this as our communication source. So that's the goal. That's the goal for this click to vote. I still need to work on a feature to block these buttons, because, for example, this one has been completed and people still voting on it. So I need to create a code that says if this is already completed, this button will be gray out, and then if somebody wants to click on it, nothing will happen. But I'm still working on that part.
Out of curiosity, what is the roadmap for the roadmap? The or like an actual timeline where you get the, this feature's coming out like approximately this quarter or this quarter. I'm sure you can't do dates, but I'm guessing quarters is one of the, like, once it's close enough to being done, you can probably pin something to some timeline marker.
Yeah, so our semester ends in March, and the idea is that we should have everything, like, that roadmap should be unblocked by April. I'm gonna have I need to have long conversations with the engineers to make sure that we're putting a new process in place for us to develop multiple features. And once that's nailed down, then we will feel more confident, all of us, to then share a roadmap vision. That's what I need. So first, internally, we need to make sure that we are all in sync, that we are feeling all comfortable with the new process, to make sure that we can be as close as precise as possible to show commitments, and then in April we should launch it. So I believe that answers the question.
Absolutely. And one quick follow-up question actually that Greg had. I think this was answered technically with the date slicer, but let me put this back onto the screen. For for slicers in general, the default selection being measure driven in terms of like either number, category, date, anything else where it, yeah, like you have an advanced option of default, and then the measure can define that selection upon changing upon refresh.
Well, there are two components. The first one is we need to make sure that slicers understand who owns who. It needs to be a community. I'll let Alper to explain that. Alper, go ahead, because you're much better than me.
I'm actually, that's like the weakest area that I have. I depend on my colleague for that, but like I can explain a little bit that, like, because the slicers are kind of unique, right, and on the Power BI canvas, because they affect all the other visuals. So you could basically have a loop where like two slicers are affecting each other, and then it kind of like blows up, right? Because it doesn't really know how to reconcile that. And so we've sort of transparently handled that under the covers, because we more or less control the options of what the default slicer settings can be. So if we make it completely user controlled now we have to make sure that we don't allow users to get into this really nasty state where they could basically have some infinite loop behavior happening. And so we got to be pretty diligent in how we allow, not diligent, but like very deliberate about how we allow this.
So you'd almost like it can be model driven, but it would be something to you'd have to carefully consider how the filter pane or visuals on the page could change the measure, which is driving the slicer. Because as you said, page changes measure, measure changes slicer, but then slicer changes page, which then changes the measure, and then that's where you get to the loop. So okay, yeah. I mean, I'll be curious to know how you tackle it when it comes out. But yeah, exactly. But I could almost see that as something where the measure can take data from the model per refresh, but it can't be affected by how the page interacts with it.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd have a circular feedback. So like semi-dynamic, but not report interaction dynamic or something.
Yeah. So some ideas we have is again, remember this core visuals is dynamic. It's an evolving tool. So this is just how we are so far talking about it. But we believe that maybe the edit interactions is the key. We can look at how the queries are running and then bring more connectivity between them. We need as well to make sure that the filters and slicers can communicate and can interact with each other the same way as the slicers can do with themselves, because at the end, filters as well affect the query. So we need to make sure that we can sync filters. They can you can select a filter and say, I do not want the filter to filter these slicers. And right now, that's not possible. Filters will affect everything in the page. And as well, if we want to sync them across multiple pages as well, we need to provide that kind of infrastructure. And finally, this is the piece that we need to figure it out. And that is, who is, like, if I have a slicer, a filter, and another filter here, and this is region, country, and city, I should have some kind of command or some control that can say who filters first. So then if I have a auto selection here, and maybe here, I know that I will run this one before the country, and then automatically I will maybe auto select or auto force selection for the city. Otherwise, each of them will try to compete against the other one, and it will, just like Alper said, it will go into a loop, and it won't work. So once we have this all figured out, once we have all this figured out, then we can go into territories for the conditional formatting to make sure that auto selection works fine. We tried to do the auto selection a year and a half ago, or a little bit more, and it just didn't work.
It didn't work in real world usage. I mean, that's the really, I don't know if you call it frustrating part, right? Because like technically all this stuff is in the system, right? But it's how do you give people kind of like that logical control over it where it makes sense, and you don't have to have people like, sure, it could work right now, but you have to go to the edit interactions, and then it's like really subtle, right? Like little icons that show up in the visual container header. You have to click each thing and then say, oh, this doesn't affect that, and things like that. It's like, you could make it work, right? But we want to make it kind of foolproof. So
Yeah, and I hadn't thought of the circular feedback part of that, but that makes a lot of sense. It's in a current state. If you just turned it on with no changes, it would be very, very easy to end up screwing up stuff unless you turned off all
Yes.
interactions and like left the slicer to be alone and not touched by anything other than probably the filter pane would be a little safer because that's but yeah, it would be tricky to do that for sure. So it sounds like it's at least being like it's being thought about on what ways to implement this.
Yeah, that's why it took me too long to launch this core visuals board, because imagine this is like a spider web. Everything is connected. So if you're not making things right, then you can not only bring confusion to the community, but you can show promises that you will never accomplish. So I had to go back and forth between engineers and architects to make sure that things were making sense. And even though right now we're still in that kind of, again, this is a unexplored territory and things still might change, but at least it's more reliable right now to have a vision, like a starting point, and have communications between us and with the community to really move things forward.
That makes sense. And it's better to have a delayed product delivered well than an early product delivered that's not quite where you'd want it to be.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just to finish, I'm trying as well to change, like here we can see information, right? Like this is going to give you some context of the whole Epic idea, but in the images, sometimes I'm trying to make a differentiation between something that has been completed. For example, the data labels. I was having a webinar with Chris Wagner, and he said, "Oh, I wish I can have this." And I said, "Well, we launched this one like a year and a half ago." So that's completed. Usually the image looks like this with colors in the background. You can see text. Everything looks more different than when we see this. So here you can see the text is not completed. There is no color in the background. So I'm trying to visually not only tell you this is completed, the icon here completed, the icon here, but even the image is giving you another message that, hey, this is different than the rest. In the feature,
I think there's one thing for this feature, and correct me if I'm wrong, the one thing I feel like is still missing for this, though, is this is on the data labels. You can't do this on the total labels. So a stacked bar chart, total labels is just regular tables. Oh, there you go. Total and reference. Okay, so it is available for development. Gotcha.
Yeah. It will be available because we did the total labels. I asked engineers, hey, can we use the code? It seems like the data labels and total labels are not the same, or I think maybe I'm confused with the zero labels.
So on those charts, they're in the top level parent format pane. There is a data label section, and below that there is a total labels on and off. So they're identical in. I think they're probably just the same label engine. It's just one sticks it on the very top of all the bars. The other one is integrated inside of the bars. So I'd figure at some point they could just take everything you just did for the enhanced labels and just lift and shift it. Just put the same, hopefully UI in the other one.
Yes, yeah, more probably. I still need to talk to the engineer in charge of data labels to make sure. Right now, those engineers are helping to move forward with other features, but we are planning to come back to Cartesians really soon. So we might be able to pick up the data label work. Still working on that. So, but you're 100% right. There is some dependencies. We have zero labels as well, as you can see, being able to show those kind of title value in detail. Sometimes the data points are not going all the way to the end. So sometimes they end up over here, maybe. So maybe you want to see the zeros labels right here beside it. And what Power BI does is if the data point doesn't reach the latest, then it doesn't show anything at all. So there are multiple improvements. All of them are listed here. But one important thing is with the features we are already finishing, the goal is to start adding these learn modules. And the modules is another very important piece of the work we are doing, because we are not only changing the data visualizations, but we want to change our documentation. Now, everything, like you can see here, donut, funnel, KPI, visuals, we're going to go and change them all. And they will look like this. One, showing you how you can create that visualization with that very basic stuff. Images that are more recent, not all stuff like in the majority of our documentation is kind of outdated. And then we're gonna show you as well, or we're gonna give you a list of all formatting settings, how they work, their limits, the options available. Like for example, here you can see column shown. It tells you the limit from 1 to 99. And when this only shows when the grid is set as layout, and you can see all formatting settings. So if you really do not know what those features do, you just come here and we're gonna list them all. This list is gonna be huge. Obviously, you can always use the search option in the Explorer to find what you need much easier. But as you can see, it's gonna be a very complete documentation, completely different of what we used to have. If we compared that, let's select the funnel. So this is our documentation right now. So a very old image. Imagine, look at this. I don't think that we have that anymore, but that's all we have. Like this is the option, and that's it. So the new documentation will be more focused on keeping things updated, complete, and much more organized. Let me go to the card visuals.
Quick question just on cards, and I'm sure you've already talked to Mike about this, and 50% chance he's already building it. But for the cards and slicers and all the others, like they are really nice to have, but they're it could take a lot of time to configure the design to what you want. And will there ever be an option to say import configuration from gallery, or like let's just assume kind of like the Matrix has 7 defaults of like style. If you created one in your own version of Power BI desktop, you just like whatever you currently have as your card, save as style, and it saves it locally in in the list of like pre-configured cards. Your custom 1 and custom 2 is just in the card.
Yeah, so
like it's available for new ones.
Yeah, so that's what I was going.
Yes,
and that's the main reason I was showing all this, just to start that conversation. As you can see, there is so much, and this is in the new card visual. The new card visual is just, let me select this one. It's just in the, I believe we finish. Yeah, it's just these 2. Small multiples that we launched not long ago. We only finished 5 features, and there is more features and settings. Like as you can see, advanced header style settings, settings with font, color, transparency, like more and more settings. The amount of settings that the new card visual will have, once we finish all 5 stages, will be tremendous. It will be really overwhelming. However, Alper has amazing news that he's going to share with you, because he's in charge of the themes, and that's one part that we would like to share with the community for first time. So I'll let Alper to disclose the news.
Yeah, thanks for the hype up. That's actually what I'm working on right now, is defining these style presets. And we're actually thinking about basically using infrastructure that's already permitted in the theme. In the theme, you can define a bunch of default styles, right? But it's always under this style preset that's called star, meaning all. What we're launching soon, hopefully in the next couple of months, is the ability to name a preset. So you could have multiple different, basically, presets for any visual, not just the card visual. And much like the pivot table, like you were mentioning before, you can have this drop down of visuals. So it won't just be these built-in presets, but also kind of user-defined presets, which are going to be pretty neat.
It's a heart.
Imagine being able.
Imagine.
Imagine being able to take your card visual, take 3-4 hours to make it look beautiful, and then once everything is set up in the way that you want, you just save that as a preset, put a name, call it professional, amazing card style, and then later on you can just use it and reuse it over and over again. You can share that code with other organizations or other themes, and they can add it into their theme and then reuse that style for themselves.
So to paraphrase, then so not just cards, but every visual could have multiple presets. Like I could have 3 types of a stacked column chart like format. I could have multiple types of cards, so on. So that just presets for all visuals, but like multiple. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
Oh, that'd be so nice.
that's a very important step for the Canvas team, because we want to introduce a ribbon called style ribbon. So then we as well, like myself, I'm gonna focus on getting presets as well for all of you, where you can just go to the ribbon. We can name those presets as well, and then you can just click on a style that I will define for you, and then you can start from there. You can just make small adjustments. And once you add your own custom style, in the same dialog, you're gonna see your own styles as well saved at the very bottom of that list. So you can have everything well organized for your organization.
That is absolutely fantastic. That makes me very happy. It's like I've already, generously used Mike Carlo over at Power BI Tips. Him and Seth, they have the theme generator, which today is still the easiest way to build a near perfect Power BI theme file that can configure every single little thing, from the borders to the background to the default shadows and all that. But it's only one default per visual. So that expansion to do this, and also just be able to leverage that native UI to add to this without having to go to a separate menu. I like this visual. I'm going to pin this because this is a pretty visual and I took an hour to build this. I want to use this again someday. That's going to be really, really nice. Like it's nice, certainly on the regular visuals, but those don't take nearly as much time. Having that on the slicers and cards and a few others where you can just immediately apply those, just me directly, I'll be saving so much time building out those and getting much quicker deliveries for clients and stuff. So I'm sure everybody from the report layer perspective is going to be really happy when this comes out. This is a huge time saver.
Yeah, so as you can see, there is some dependency here. The original idea was to first improve the customized theme dialog. So then you can collect those features right there and make a lot of bunch of changes in a very intuitive interface. But what happened is it seems like we can start with the code first. We can make sure that there is room for that capability, and later on we can focus on the theme dialog. So that's again, this is one of the things that I need to change. This one won't have any dependency anymore. It will go all the way to the beginning. This item will go to the top, and things will start moving. And we couldn't see that until finally Alper was able to go into this feature, understanding the infrastructure, and then coming up with a plan that really makes sense for our infrastructure. So that's another example of things can change.
I think I want to make the point too that this is also spurned on by the PBIP kind of push, right? To make all our report definitions open, right? So as soon as you make it open, it's is there a place where we can put these presets in a place that makes sense? It's it makes sense to put it in the themes. And when you do that, you can even inspect if you save your report as a PBIP and you made some preset in some other file, you could just lift it and then put it into the theme, and then you're done, right? You don't actually have to mess with the UI for power user. And then what else is really cool about that? You brought up Mike Carlo's PBI tips, theme generator. Now, when we do this functionality, they can roll it into, them or any other ISVs can use this infrastructure to basically add so much value to their customers, right? Because all of a sudden you've saved them so much time from formatting visuals. If you just say and honestly, this is me being too honest, but we were spending a lot of time, as Power BI, what are good presets that we should build in for our visuals. And this is one place where it's we can sort of outsource this, right? As long as we have the infrastructure to allow people to define their own presets, now all of a sudden the world is the oyster, instead of us just kind of prescribing, hey, you should use these 3 presets or something like that.
I guarantee Mike will have that, because he loves building galleries and repositories. It's one of his biggest passions, just having a central source for a thing that's part of the community. And he already has the PBI themes, so I'm sure the next evolution of that will you can build out these presets, but there'll probably be a gallery of community contributed presets where do you like this?
Sure.
Click a button, adds to the file, you download it, and
Instant.
then it's just in your report. Yeah. So like to your point, like it's community outsourced. Let people build a library somewhere of collecting these things, and you can see all the really cool ones, you know, from like Kerry Kalasco, NJ Park. You know, I'm sure there'll be handfuls and very quickly dozens, if not hundreds, of cool like themes that are built out that can be re-leveraged.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I'm looking forward to it.
For you guys too, it's probably it's probably fun to be able to see the tools that you built. Like I had no idea like these 5 features could be assembled in this way, but that looks really cool because you see all these new solutions that probably are beyond even what you would have thought of to use initially. So I'm sure it's fun to see that the child you create kind of evolved into this new form as the community figures out unique ways to poke and prod it.
Absolutely, yep. And I'm trying to as well to have or to start conversations on the app stores. So once the infrastructure is ready, we want to have another, like we have an app source for custom visuals. I want to have another tab where now you can go into themes and styles. So people can share their own and even sell packages of multiple layouts and styles. Yep. So I hope that this allows users to do not feel completely overwhelmed by a tremendous amount of features that we are adding, which is going to be kind of crazy. As well, we want to do improvements in the format pane to really hide those really advanced settings and then just keep things light as much as possible. But we do not want to restrict those users that really want to take things to the next level. And it's not only for those users that are very into design, but as well, if we want Copilot to create piece of art, we need to give them amazing tools to do that. And that's why I need to start unblocking and adding more and more features so then Copilot can get smarter and smarter how to treat them and then get people with not much design expertise amazing results. So that's another reason. So I need to bring as many ingredients as I can so then the chef can prepare an amazing meal.
Exactly. The best ingredients for the best meals.
Yes. So that's the part of the feature list, and I believe you can watch the walkthrough if you want to learn. I have NJ going through this dashboard, giving a better explanation the way I'm doing it, and as well, please follow us in our LinkedIn account. We are always looking. We are trying to always bring the latest news. We are trying to show, like sometimes we share demos, we share other people's amazing content that we believe is really important for report creators to know. And when we launch something, we usually deliver a ton of information that we usually cannot do this in our official channels because the tone and the content cannot be too large, and there are a bunch of things that we need to be more careful how to do it. But here we have full freedom. We can use images in the way that we want. We can explain things. We can be happy when we're talking about it, and stuff like that. So here you can learn a lot. You can really like I highly suggest the community to follow our channel so then you can be informed. Basically, that's the main reason.
I dropped the link as well to the English tutorial that NJ has, and if I can, let me also PBI vision board. I want to put the main LinkedIn page so they can subscribe to you and get on board with that. Yes, here it is. Let's get this one as well. So copy link. And it's in the chat for anybody who wants to jump onto that for the link to both subscribe to their PBI Core Visuals channel. And also, if you need other languages, I think it looks like there's a tutorial in Dutch, English, and Portuguese, yes?
That's correct.
When's the Spanish one coming out of curiosity?
Soon. soon. I think I'm going to do the Spanish one.
Okay. I was wondering if you when you get time, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it will come up.
Excellent.
So how about if we talk about the things that are happening in the coming months? I think
Yes.
Alper already disclosure for first time this plan of the styles. As you can see, it's a very amazing stuff. I think that's going to allow users to really do not feel intimidated by the amount of features. They can come up with their own styles and apply them really quickly. But that's a very strategic piece, as Alper said, because it connects to other features and it will scale dramatically. The other things that we want to do is we really want to get the new car visual going. We want this one to be GA. We need to be mature enough so then people feel more confident using them in production. I heard from Mike Carlo that he doesn't really want to use any preview features because we have a bad reputation on how we handle this kind of stuff. So we understand that, and we are going to focus on getting everything ready as much as possible. We want the small multiples to be done. And we were hoping at the beginning to do the 4 first stages, including the trends, and then get this one rolling to GA. But I think it will take kind of longer. So our approach is going to just finish the first 3, make this one GA, and then post GA as an extra enhancement, we're going to do the trend support for the new car visual. The main goal is for the new car visual to replace the card, multi-row card, and KPI card. So that means once the new car visual becomes GA, the old card and the multi-row card will not be available any longer. So you won't be able to select it. We will be able to support them. If you have already created multiple reports with those 2 visualizations, they will continue being able to be displayed, but you won't be able to create a new one from the gallery because those icons won't exist anymore. The new car visual will now take place to replace them. Once we do the cars with trend lines, which is this feature, then the KPI car will disappear as well, and the car will take over the 3 spots.
I'm assuming by then I'm guessing the icon or the title of it will change a little bit, just because it's not just a card anymore. It's like all these different things, and kind of that it could be with that. So I'm sure there's careful thought that you're having on trying to make sure that if somebody just opens Power BI Desktop in 6 months and like doesn't see something, whatever new icons are there are going to helpfully hint to them what they could use to make whatever they previously made.
Yeah, there are plans that if you have already a old card, a dialog will show up saying, hey, we have a new card visual, do you want to upgrade? So then they can be informed that the card doesn't exist and there is an upgrade that they can take advantage of.
Yep.
But yeah, we are going to try to figure out what is going to be the communication. It's a huge change because for over 9 years, people have already seen those visualizations, and now there is going to be gone. So we're going to be careful how we do that part. But I think it's going to go well because there is no comparison with the car visual and the new car visual. Like the amount of limitations that you have with the car visual are huge compared to the new car visual, and same with the small multiples. That's why the multi-row card. The multi-row card, the way that you can split your information into multiple categories, it doesn't really feel and it doesn't look good. It was not that as effective as now where we are implementing small multiples. So then you can really bring your main information in some section and multiple information as a secondary or complementary data below, and then you can split those ones into categories, which is what the multi-row card was intending to do.
Yep, and I mean just being able to have that from a filter perspective is going to save a ton of work on like extra measures, because now it's like each card kind of if you need US, Central, and East, you need a dedicated measure for A, B, and C, and it's like 3 + 3. And some people have built up beautiful scorecards, but it's like 65 measures that have been copy pasted in tabular editor. So just having this on takes that from 65 to 6. So that's one of my favorite things to be coming out soon. That I think like the trend lines are nice, but in terms of actually creating a series of rows or columns or a grid, this will be so much easier to snap your finger and make that versus the other. All you have to do is make one card as the template, and then it breaks it out.
Completely, yep. The other part that is coming this in the coming months is to wrap up the button slicer to make it as well GA. There are only few components that I need to nail down with engineers, which is layouts, and that's something else I want to talk. Layout is how we manage each component of the visualization. And so far, people are being like are reaching out to me saying that things are not clear how they can manage them, and sometimes they behave kind of strangely. So we want to come up with fundamental principles, apply them everywhere, and then launch the button slicer. There is something else we want to do for the button slicer to make a GA. We know that there is a chiclet slicer that people use a lot, so we want to make sure that we can support as much as the chiclet slicer supports. We might not be able to do everything because chiclet slicer contains the force selection, which is one of the most used features in the chiclet slicer. And as you heard, forcing selection into multiple slicers can create that kind of loop that can break things kind of easily. So we might not be able to do that one, but everything else that the chiclet slicer supports, we will support, and then we will launch the button slicer. We will continue with the list slicers to continue moving forward into the whole development. There are really cool features that are part of this work, which is copy and paste a list from Excel and then just paste it in the search box or somewhere, and then people can just click an option that says select, and then everything that you copy and paste will be selected, which is a pretty cool feature. People asking for it a lot.
And I'm guessing you can configure each level. So I mean, like each level is a column. So the top level is the division, and then you have employees. So division, obviously, you don't need a picture. You might just literally want the word in a certain font, and then you get the actual cards below that.
Exactly.
So I'll figure each column is custom.
Exactly. Yeah. Not only that, but remember that we have one option called select all. So that button, maybe you want for select to have an image or to look different than the rest. So you're going to have control over every aspect, every level, every component, everything.
So if I wanted Lisa to be blue for some reason on her text and the rest black, I kind of how you have all the other options where you can apply, you can format all, or you can format any of the individuals. You'll kind of have a similar design. Okay, that's really nice.
Imagine the power.
That's cool.
So this is as well one that people are asking a lot: rack hierarchies. So we want that rack hierarchy to work really well in the slicer. This is really important because even for finance table, like for financial table, is really important. So if we do this work really well here in the list slicer, we can translate that. We can pass that kind of functionality to the table in metrics. So that's another one that is really important, and that's our next goal. In the coming months, you're going to start seeing more and more enhancements for the list slicer. I have to say this one was my fault. It was when we launched the list slicer. It was one of the most criticized slicers or features that we have launched in the 2 years that I have been PM. And even my manager and the manager of my manager and the manager of the manager of my manager reached out to me because they were in panic mode, like all this negativity from the community, and they were like, "What's going on in here?" And what happened is we launched the list slicer with very few enhancements, just to show up something. What we should have done is to hold on, make more enhancements, and then show, because at that moment when we did in October, people didn't see a difference between the list slicer, the button slicer, and the list slicer, and that's why it was badly criticized. Something else that we want to do this coming months is we are not going to launch features like that anymore. We're going to hold on. We're going to make sure that we have really well-defined stages, and then we're going to launch them when really makes more sense. If it's much better doing that and holding our community for 3 or 2 months without launching a feature, a larger feature, than launching something really quickly and then people get panicking or upset on what we are sharing with them. So that's what we do.
Quick follow-up on this, because Greg was asking a couple questions on, let's see if I can pop this in. And I was answering a little bit in the oh, send it up here. So like basically making a card set, viz set a filter value, small multiples on a card. When I was mentioning to him is like, essentially there's going to be full parity between these. Like the card options, the slicer options, you can make them look nearly identical. They're both lists of values, by category or something else. One is a clickable filter, the other is just a card. But title, like title value, sub value, reference label, all of that will eventually be, I believe, full parity between the two. So like almost any design that I can do on a card, I should be able to do on a slicer, like, or at least most of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the button slicer, even though that they can look similar, we really want to create a differentiation between like visuals.
Okay.
So the button slicer will have a very unique infrastructure, how can I say, structure. So it will be structured in a very precise way for a button. The card visual, and we know that people will start thinking about how can I make my card be selectable. So the card visual will be more robust. It will have more options, and obviously we know that people want them to be actionable. So if you want your card, when you click on the card, to maybe filter you the page or take you to another place or open another report or whatever you want, actions will be available for the card. And not only one action, we know as well that a card can hold multiple actions, and we might be able to use the tooltip, show actions, and then we can display a list of actions that you can define by this particular card.
This would be nice. Yeah.
Remember, with the first milestone, we allowed in a single container to have multiple cards. So in that single container, you can now define, hey, for Japan, I want 3 actions, but for USA, only 1. And because this is only 1, you don't need to go through the menu in the tooltips. You can just click directly, and it will take you there. For Japan, because you have 3, then you can see that menu. We're still working on the details, but you can decide every action per different card. No idea if you can define them as well separately by series. Like you can say series 1, card 1, I want this action, but for series 1, card 1, I want another action. Like as that kind of full customized, I have no idea how far we can take. But at least,
you know that if you ever give a person a list, like, well, it's if you give a mouse a cookie scenario. So if you ever give an option for list flexibility, you know that somebody's going to ask that to be measure driven. Mostly just because I can imagine just like row level security. Let's assume that like some people get an option to drill through to employee financials or bonuses. From that, this report would be useful for middle managers, and they don't get to see that page or something. So just being able to dynamically via, I don't know, some table you just have in the model, have it be able to show or hide appropriate actions automatically. That's the pipe dream for something like that.
We already support that somehow, because in the action menu there is one thing called your URL, and that one has an FX button, which you can then create, like mix that with other parameters that can be changed automatically by the governance, and automatically altogether can do the trick. Basically, there is already some kind of work in there that we can just take advantage of. But it will be like people have to be creative enough to connect these two and make it work in the way that you're describing. But it should.
So another thing I want to say about this is between the card visuals and the slicer is that, sure, they're kind of like essentially the same thing, but one is really like measure focused, right? And the other one is really dimension focused. And sure, you can like mix elements of it, but I think we want to be really deliberate about that.
Of course, yeah. And like you have some of that options today, as I was telling Greg in the chat. The slicer does have a label and sublabel, so like you can have a title and a value. US 2.4 million sales. It doesn't have the detail label yet, but I'm figuring a few more of those are eventually coming, where it's you can make it not a complete card, but you can make it fairly card-like, but then you get the hierarchy and the buttons and all the other stuff with it versus the call-out visuals in there. Just out of curiosity, that is one thing that I'm eagerly awaiting. Is there a timeline on, at any point of the slicer getting that one final detail value where you could have USA sales, and then right below that is, like your variance or something, just the extra row on the button slicer?
And no, on the button slicer, no. The way that I managed that need read was to support tooltip. In the past, any slicer was able to support tooltip, so then you can have extra context. So instead of me making and adding more and more context into a button slicer, I said, all right, I know that users will say that they want more information in the button, so then I'll let them use that tooltip. That was the plan.
Good to know that. Yeah, I've not thought of using the tooltip, but that if it changes context over everything, then with a measure driven, that would at least allow you to add one more line.
Yes. Now the list slicer will have an extra element. In the list slicer, you're gonna have a value. So you can say how many children are below this parent, or you can say, or you can change that by the sales amount or the headcount amount or the maximum. You can make that value dynamic. Like you can change it. You can customize it. So that one will be another component that we are adding as an extra. There is something else that I'm trying to figure out with Alper, and that is the suffix and prefix. Sometimes users want to have like numbers, and they want the sign to be different, or the cents to be smaller, or maybe having the metric beside the value, but they want to make them kind of not as noticeable as the number. And that's something that we might be able to add it, and that will give you other two extra components in the slicers and the new car visual. But we're still working on how we're going to do that, because that's going to add more pressure into the format pane. And as you know, I really want to bring a lot of components, but I need to bring the ones that are more important, instead of just adding more and then not being able to even figure out how I can handle them in the format pane. But that might be able to give you that extra layer of information that you were looking for.
So I have a few questions spun up, if we can maybe switch over to some Q&A parts. And on the format pane, actually, one from Marjolaine that was brought up. So let me find the question here. So she loves all the possibilities in the format pane, but it can be very confusing for people to do PBI besides their daily job, so like a controller. So it's one of many tools they use. So she was, I guess, wondering like what's the best way to maybe help some of the individuals who have a difficult time navigating that. I would think maybe from a resource or a learning perspective.
Well, I think the important part is to use the documentation. That's one place where they can start just learning. As you saw, the plan for our team is to really bring that documentation in a much better way, so then people can learn from it. The other one that we realized, because we did our research not long ago, is that they are not using the search box in the format pane. So if you want to change color of something, just go to the search, select color, and it will filter 100 of those formatting settings and just show you the ones that you need. And then from there, you can learn how they work. The other one is sometimes we show in our in our channel, we share tutorials, and you can go to that particular section. You can get the Power BI file that we are sharing with the community. I think somewhere in here it should be. But we share the link for the PBX to be downloaded, and then you can see tutorials. And by practicing in this way, I wish when I learned Power BI, I wish I had that kind of materials. Now you have multiples, not only from me, but there are other amazing people that have tutorials, and they share the file. But I usually have them. So in the chat somewhere in here, you're gonna see that my team is creating dashboards and then sharing them, so then you can learn best practices and all this stuff. So this one, for example. So if you want to learn how this was created, how you use the new slicers, like this design, then just go to the chat, download that file, and then play with the tool. Make sure that you see how the formatting settings were used. And by doing that, this is a very, very nice way to speed up that learning curve. Later on, once Alper allows us to have the themes, things will be much easier because we will provide a good foundation of those styles. You can start from there and then just make small tweaks to align them with your branding or your own analytic needs.
I really just watching that one visual in there. My eyes always get drawn like a dog to any of the cool stuff. The highlighted bands and others are pretty fun. I do know the work that has to go into doing that today, but it is really nice to see some of those fun little implementations and and line or category highlighting that you can do on a visualization. Let's see. If you let me actually switch to a talking screen just until we need to share again. So this one. There we go. Let's bring up another one. So I'll do earliest to latest just in terms of order. So Zoran had those questions. Slovenians proudly claim that Microsoft is using Zebra BI visuals for internal reporting. So the question from that is like, when will these type of powerful visuals be replicatable with capabilities of core visuals? So I'll just blanket that to like, it's like XViz, Zebra BI, any of those advanced visualizations and or like IBCS type stuff that some of those do. And I guess replicating some of those features then with core visuals.
Yeah, so we're going to support IBCS functionalities. We have done already a lot of them. For example, IBCS always requests or suggests to have bars where there is a differentiation between one bar that is filled and another one that has only one line, as well suggests to do.
Yep.
Yes, another one is suggests to have, if you want to compare from previous times or frames, they allow you to overlap. So you can see the previous one at the back and the current in the front. That is as well something we're supporting that it was impossible in the past. We have plans to introduce gradient. So you can see textures in the columns, which is another IBCS stuff. IBCS as well allows or suggests to have more options for lines and textures, so then people can differentiate them much better, which we implemented a custom pattern in lines that didn't exist. And like that, there are multiple things that we are adding for IBCS. Now, the main question here is, are you going to be just like Zebra and other visualizations? The answer is no. Those visualizations are designed to really quickly be be dropped into the page. You just drag and drop fields into their field wells, and automatically you have already a fully applied IBCS visualization. Our tool won't do that. Our tool is designed to be very flexible to achieve any kind of look and feel, and as well to meet any kind of report requirements. So IBCS is just one spectrum of many other ones that we need to support. That means that in our core visuals, you have to take extra steps to make it fully IBCS aligned than the other custom visuals. However, as you heard, Alper is working on the styles, which now you can save a style called IBCS column chart, and with one click, it will be done. So, but you still need to do that job. The visualization won't do that for you.
The one question that I had as a just as a follow-up to that on the line patterns, because we sometime in the last year we got the custom one for lines where like we used to just have dotted, dashed, and I think there was one other, but then now there's that custom where you can choose the type and then yeah, you can change the intervals and all that. I'm assuming like that list of patterns would be something that would be eventually applicable to the fill of a visual, so like the column fill. Will that also come to the border out of curiosity? So like maybe I actually want a solid color, but I want a dotted border to go around the column or any of those line patterns. So that was my, I guess, question is when that additional fill type comes in for the column elements, will that be both for the actual middle part of the element plus the border?
Yeah, so all those additions are planned for the line, for the columns,
Nice.
for the area, and even markers. For example, the marker will have a border. So now a marker, you can make a
Okay.
border that is dotted, etc. But
Nice.
the situation here is the same one as I said before. The format pane was never, ever prepared to hold so many settings. And what I'm struggling is to really get together with designers and engineers and say what is going to be our plan for the next stage of adding more features.
Yeah.
And that means all three pillars have to agree that this is the most reliable way technically in the UI UX best practices, and how as a PM will manage bunch of settings without having a huge negative impact to our new users. Imagine a new user arriving to Power BI and now looks like a Photoshop, like high professional design tool with a ton of options. I need to make sure to protect those users.
You know what would solve that a little bit as a pipe dream is if we could get Power BI to split into multiple windows, the
Right?
format pane doesn't just have to be a pane anymore. We could just split it over and have a nice little, square window with all of the options we need
All the
to.
options. I know. Well, that's Canvas
Pipe
team
dream.
territory.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I'm sure a lot of development, but I have an ultra wide 49, and if I could actually window my Power BI across it, it would be amazing.
yeah, I look forward for that too. But again, I just need to keep things in balance. Right now, even though
course.
that we can do that, it's something that I need to plan carefully. I again, just being honest, and I like to be transparent. I didn't have much experience as a PM when I arrived to the team. And right now, if I knew things that I know now, things could move kind of differently. So now I'm trying to be less excited and then just throw up a bunch of options. And I want to be more strategic. I want to make sure that things are not going to wild territories that then it will make things kind of more costly for us to fix later. So I think those options, Reed, that you're asking are already in our roadmap, but we need to make sure that they live in a nice and comfortable place, so then people can access to those really, really advanced options only when it's necessary, and not only being exposed, making a really long scrolling experience for new users to find very basic stuff. Right now, we are using the same space for basic, intermediate, and advanced settings, all in the same area, and it's kind of difficult. Even for me, I think I had I did a webinar a week ago with Chris Wagner, and it was like he told me, hey, I just want to make a video about the vision board, and I want you to create something cool, but I didn't know that he wanted me to basically create something from scratch. So I was completely raw. I was not prepared, and I had to create something. And even in that video, you can see how I struggle. As me being the PM, I struggle going through the format settings and finding what I need. So that's why I'm saying I just need to be very careful how I add those features in the future.
And on the note of that, on you have essentially described for your team that you have in the relationship with the community, it's the manager and the rock scenario. So it's the there's two rocks that the manager want, and they look basically identical. One rock takes 5 minutes, the other rock takes 5 weeks. It's like, well, but they look the same. Why does this one take longer than the other? And I think you have to a degree a lot of that issue with some of these features.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a simple feature. Like, all I want is this visual to have this thing over here. Yes, but to get to that would take these 18 steps. The other thing on the thing, no, we already have the groundwork for that. I can add that tomorrow. My one curiosity is on your core visuals board. I know you have on some of the individual things certain mentions where it shows like this is required to get to that. I would be curious to know if you would ever build like a dependency view where you could actually show the lineage where, like, yes, to get to this, here is the, a line with connected points of here's the 9 steps that it would take to get here, but it shows all of them in kind of a dependency tree from left to right. Something like that could be really pretty, but also I think really help to show from a holistic view, like why, this one card feature is way over here on the far right. The other card feature is mostly to the left because it only takes 1 step. The other part of it is 9 steps further down the pipeline from that. But I could imagine that as maybe that's a big ask, but I could see that as a very cool view. Somewhere in here is like a little dependency of all the actions required to get to something.
Yeah, it's a complex view. Again,
Yeah.
when and you know this one better than anyone, Reed, because when I had this whole map, it was all in Figma, remember? And even
Yeah.
when I share with all of you, I got complaints the next day saying, "Hey, this is a lot of information and it's just too much." And we were trying as well to create some dependencies in that Figma to make sure that every community representative can understand that if you're going to vote on something to represent the need of your community, make sure that you understand that there is some dependencies. And it was just very difficult to see. Now, the request you're saying is in one single view, how can we display those dependencies? I think it is important, and I think we can do it. And I hope in the future we can do this advanced, cool visualization called organizational chart, where we can see all the connection and then see what is dependent to what. Maybe that will allow us. Who knows?
So essentially, just cards, but for people cards, and then in a hierarchical org structure of some top down, middle out, whatever it is. Okay, that would be really cool.
Imagine selecting one feature and then see the ones that have dependency or connected with it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like there are cool ways in the future that maybe we can, in one single view, we can show all the dependencies, and then people can really easy track one by one. But right now it's a challenge. Data visualization is a challenge because you need to tell a story, right? And you need to do it in a way that every person can understand what you're trying to say. Yeah. So right now, this is our best bet to show that information and to allow users to not feel that frustrated, because they really get angry that why are we doing things and we're not hearing our community if there are multiple features that they need for many years and we haven't done it. And I totally agree. I used to be in that side. I used to wait when I was working for the customer advisory team. I used to just wait for features every month and see what was bringing to us. And I was really angry as well. And I said, why are they doing this? Why did they forget to change the color to the size to the call out? But now I understand there are multiple things happening in the background. It's not that easy. And I'm trying to do not bring all that information because it is a lot of things that I can share, but just in this clear vision, can at least give that context to our community and see where we are at and why we are not moving forward with certain features.
It's still a huge leap forward in terms of information, but it's, mouse a cookie scenario. Anytime you give anybody additional stuff, there's always going to be requests for more enhancements, improvements, and just other cool things, because it sparks ideas in people when you give them new information, for sure.
Completely.
Just so we don't run on too long, let me just see if I can actually try to get through these last couple of questions. So one from Evan from much earlier, I'll pop onto the screen. Do you ever expect in the future any kind of alignment between basically Excel visuals and Power BI visuals?
No, right now, this is completely out of my scope. Well, it's not out of my scope. It's not something that I have thought very carefully. I do know that there is a possibility, let me go to interactivity, to maybe when we work on sorting, we have some kind of option to sync sort to all these results, which I believe we already have, but we do it differently. Maybe what I'm understanding is, for example, if you want to move some kind of scrolling or to change the sort to a certain level, if there is the same level in other visualizations or tables, all the other visualizations will go to the same level as the one you're going into. Or if you're moving a scroll bar from one visualization, it will sync the scrolling experience to other visualizations, so you can always be focused on the same category or section of the data. So that's something that I haven't thought, but maybe when we look deep into sorting and other interactivity settings, we might be able to know better and then define a roadmap for it.
So yeah, like that was, I guess, so similarly my thoughts is they're very different tools designed with entirely different code bases as well. So like any shared features is something that's going to be almost more coincidence than than
Yeah.
planned action for some of those. But like, I mean, we already got a little bit more, but with the on-object format and like in Excel, you know, for decades, you could just click on like a little chart element, it would drill into it, and then you could move it or change
Yeah.
stuff on that. But it's entirely other code base that provides that option.
Yeah. I will say that we've taken some of our design direction from Excel, because it's like, hey, if it works for them, it works for us. There's some
Yep.
things it works really well, and other things it just falls flat on its face, and then it's like we kind of have to pivot. And so like we've had conversations with them, and yeah, sure, there's the whole different code base concept, but like our stuff is inherently dynamic, their stuff is inherently not. So then a lot of the kind of the abstractions, the organizations kind of break down. But some things I think that have worked really well from Excel are like layouts. And so that was one thing that we shipped last year, right? Was matrix and table layouts. And so that made it a lot more like Excel, and we've gotten pretty good feedback on that. So
Let's see, one other from Evan. I think this is a good one. Yeah. So is there any sort of vision for continuing the idea of things like Trickticulator or any other low-code visual building?
No, so far. Yeah, so as far as I know, we discussed multiple options, but it seems like we need to, like, we are right now in the growing phase. We're making sure that the code is clean, organized, and once we clean our own house, we might be able to open the doors for people to join us. But at this moment, we just need to make sure that everything is running well, smooth, and really nicely, and the code can scale. Once we have that, again, we might be able to come up with the strategies to maybe open some sections of the, like, it is wild for me to talk about it because we are just starting walking. But once we have we are in a better stage, we might be able to start that conversation. I'll let Alper as well. Alper, you have, you know, Trickticulator better than
I have way too many thoughts about this, but in the interest of being brief, like it's really interesting to me that in the data visualization research community where I come from, there's not a lot of concentration on how you help people make visualizations. Instead, there's been more of a focus on like visualization grammars and stuff like that, which is where you get Deneb from. And Deneb works real well, right? But it's not really a low code way of creating visualization. So we hope to get to it in the near future for sure.
It's gotten a lot better, and I'd honestly say Deneb, because it's public with Vega and Vega Lite. So like continuing thanks to Daniel for the hundreds, if not thousands, of hours that he's put into this at this point. But the pre-built templates that are copy paste, and the fact that like you change a number, you get instant changes in the visual for that. And ChatGPT makes it, I would say, almost no code. Like you're copying code around, but you don't ever have to type it. Like if you have a block of code and you need to change something, paste it into ChatGPT, say, with a screenshot, my visual looks like this. Could you please make sure that the data labels are another 10% to the right? And it will just rewrite the code, you paste it back in. So it's not like completely seamlessly integrated with like Copilot, but if you have any version of like ChatGPT you can use, like it makes it really, really easy to build that stuff. So like that's my encouragement anytime people need low code is ChatGPT plus Deneb, and you can give yourself half an hour to an hour, you could probably get to the visual that you need to fairly quickly. Let's see, a couple last questions. From I think a few from Greg. So let me bring this up. Part one of two-part questions, so I'll read both. A broad theme, both of my questions that I've observed in complex reports is adding more and more behavior to reports, so making them more application-like. And then, is there any thought toward a report programming language similar to what VBA does in SSRS or paginated reports?
Oh, well, I'll answer that one. It's too complex to me.
Greg likes to ask the technical questions.
No, that's great. I've actually spent a lot of like mental effort. It was more in the beginning part of last year, or I guess it's suppose we're still in 2024. So beginning of this year, because we get so many questions about bookmarks and how cumbersome they are to use. But like at the core part of it, the bookmarks are kind of saving application state and letting you like jump between different parts of application state. So it's like, why can't you write something to say, hey, change the slicer to this, change the page to this or something like that, like some sort of scripting language. And in my mind, whenever I like play around with this, and I will say one of the coolest parts about working in Power BI is that we have hackathons twice a year, where for a week we can work on whatever we want, and we have a really good like features delivery rate from those. Like engineers work on whatever they want, or PMs work on whatever they want, and we ship like half of those features. It's like quality of life stuff. But one of the things I was playing around with is something like, I want to call it Apple script, but it's kind of like hyperscript, but like hypercard. I don't know if anyone remembers it, but that's the system that's behind Mist, like that old video game, right? Like you click on this place, you jump to something else and stuff like that. But a lot of that code was written in this hyperscript or Apple script sort of thing, which was very natural language-y. So you could say like, for this, I was thinking like trying to think about like how could we make bookmarks easier, more interrogable, or like how do you build application state, or like define like when I click on this button it does these things. It's like, what if there was some sort of script that you could say this and this and this. Anyway, all this to say is that like we're thinking about it, but we haven't really like solidified on a plan, right? So yes, to answer the question, yes, there's been thought about it, but it's hard to see, okay, once we kind of come to a decision or a strategy that we like, how do we kind of sell it to say, hey, we should be spending our time doing this? And so like to me, like I'm saying this out loud so that if people have ideas and how we can like kind of like, oh, this is the thing that will bring value to our customers, and maybe we do some less visualization stuff, right? Because it's kind of like a finite sum game. We can't just hire more people to do this, but try to figure out
I mean, the easiest thing that I can think of, like without adding any UI, would just be the ability, and to this last comment that Greg has, stacking bookmarks. So all you would do is like, and you could each bookmark could be slicer, one filter, and then you just pause 5 seconds to bookmark. The next one is literally just one filter or one pop-up, but you'd get that stack. And there wouldn't be any change to the UI other than you'd create a top level bookmark, and you have an option to specify any delay between whatever order you do. So it's really just group, be able to execute that and delay. But that seems like almost one of the shortest roads to programming something like that without actually adding any new features other than just running in sequence with delays between.
Yeah, but the tricky part is like knowing what's in a bookmark.
That's the user's choice, right? With that, because like you can still do this yourself. If you just had 8 bookmarks, you could go through, click, wait 3 seconds, click the next one. You're just simply programming that into like a button option. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think I don't think there's any other questions. There was one from Greg about could you change the query in the visual, but I'll mention that's probably more of a J question. If you can ever edit the queries and choose, like tell it no, slap your hand, you're not going to use summarize columns. I'm going to use add columns and summarize.
Yeah, definitely for J.
Exactly. But Greg, thanks for the good questions. With all of those, as always, when you come in, I like to have the hard hitters that makes us think a little out of the box. Out of curiosity, for either of you, Miguel or Alper, what are in like, let's just say the next semester-ish, like for the first half of this year or so, what are the favorite features that are coming out soon that haven't been released yet? If you could pick like just a couple of them each. I'll go start with you, Miguel.
Okay. Well, the feature Alper is working on, which is the themes, is to me the one that I was looking forward like badly. As well as I'm looking forward for layouts. Layouts is a feature that is based on a grid system. And that grid system allows users to really define where they want to see their visualizations being placed as a placeholders. And then you can really quickly define how much you want to have for margin, the spacing between them vertically and horizontally. And then you can create a multiple layout pages. So then you can scale that into a organization, and somebody can create a report from scratch just by selecting the right layout style. That to me is really important because it changes the game of how we deal with layouts, which is it will affect eventually or all our data visualizations. Like this is something that is not just for the canvas itself. It will really change the game of the whole way that we work on. So that part, being able to go to one of the roots of the tree and then work from the base, it really makes me excited, and I'm pretty sure the users are going to love the fact that now their organization can have those packages ready for them. It can scale really well, and with combination of the styles that Alper is starting working on, it will make a powerful tool. Like we're going to see some kind of game changing. That's number one. That's to me one of the most important ones in the report creation. In the report consumption, I'm really excited on the Translytical apps, which is a way to write back into your data source from Power BI to actually trigger actions. It doesn't need to necessarily be a write back scenario. It can be something else. So people can create a data function from Fabric and then go into Power BI, use our new slicers that can work as a form style stuff, or they can use measures to whatever you select in your data visualization can be the input for the action to be triggered. And I believe the fact that we're doing that is a major milestone in the history of Power BI. It's taking us to a next level. So the combination of the slicers and the new visualizations or the enhancements in the data visualizations we are adding are going to work together to create this new experience is something that really makes me excited. So those are the two major ones that are coming in the coming months.
I agree with you on the application type or app type building for like a Power BI report page. When you add those action buttons, it's going to push that a lot closer to that kind of design for these really bespoke, highly customized behavior program type landing pages that aren't just a report page anymore, but something that's like almost like an app that somebody's built just as a report page. Like you've gotten nearly all the way there just with the vision board that you have. Like it's not a report; it's a full like application essentially. What about you, Alper? What are one or two of your favorite things that are coming out? If Miguel hasn't already mentioned them.
To be honest, I think one of my favorite things that is coming out that I can't wait to see what it looks like in the wild, what people do with it, are the trend line graphs on the card visual, because it's like we did a paper with like people from Tableau Research and Simon Fraser University about like how do people actually use dashboards, right? And it's like it's the scariest thing when people spend so much time creating a dashboard but then nobody uses it, right? And I think part of that reason is like you don't know what to do with it, right? But like if you have a first party visual that's really good at showing numbers, or BANs, I'm not going to say what it stands for, but like having those big numbers be there and they look nice, but then also some sort of feedback to say, is this good or is this bad? And it's different for somebody that comes to a report and looks at it every day. Like the example I'll use is our VP, leader, president, Arun, will look at a report and he knows what these numbers mean, right? But if somebody else comes to the report, they're like, they see these numbers, they're like, I don't have no idea what this means. And the KPI visual sort of got to that point. But now in the card visual, people are already like massively flocking to this. It's like dwarfing our usage of other visuals, our first party visual, our second party visuals, and the third party visuals. Like it's nuts. It's not even released yet. But now when we give people the ability, oh, you can also put a chart in here and this actually means something, you start imbuing like meaning or semantics into the number. I think that's going to be like a game changer, because then it kind of informs what does somebody do with this. And then with the Translytical apps or Power Apps, you know, then you can actually take an action on it. Now here's a place that you go, not just to see what's going on with the state of the world, but I can use this to drive my daily tasks. And I don't necessarily have to be doing a hodgepodge of things together. So that whole analysis, or like, you know, I don't know, it's like your check-in journey or something like it. I think it'll make it a lot cleaner. So I'm to be honest, like that's the one thing other than the things that Miguel mentioned that I'm really excited about.
well, as you said, it's the, I mean, reports historically, they went from read only to interactable, and the
Yeah.
next phase to drive towards actionable. So it's like I can, you know, be alerted by a goal, in Power BI metrics that something has changed to a state that requires review. I can go to the report page
Right.
to review it, and then in the same environment, after reviewing and determining what I need to do, I can just do the thing
Yeah.
from said environment if needed, in terms of any like data entry or other actions within the Microsoft or connected universe that you have without
Right.
having to switch to 7 different applications. So
It's
um,
crazy too, because
yeah,
it could be totally arbitrary, right? Like I could start like a new marketing thing, like what do you call it? A campaign, right? Like straight from my report. If I have a data function set up to do it, it could just hit a button. All of a sudden, everything starts, right? So I
yeah,
think it's just really cool.
exactly. I appreciate both of you coming on, and thank you for staying on later as well. But like, there's plenty to talk about. I loved the amount of questions that I got from chat as well. It's always good to get a lot of participation and curiosity on what exists and what's coming. But very cool stuff. And Miguel, as I mentioned to you, that I haven't brought up yet, but the soft announcement on one thing that I'm trying to get together is just as many of the community contributors from the core visuals like community team that gets involved with that. I'm gonna try to spin up about a once a quarter live stream. So just take one of these bi-weekly calls that I have and get Miguel, Alper, anybody else from the core visuals team, and some community representatives. I'll be using the StreamYard platform to try to actually get about 8 to 10 people on so we can have a chat. But the goal of that really is, because this is such a fast moving development that you guys are doing with a lot of this, is really just spending each of those quarterly calls to just recap what's come out in the last quarter and what's coming out in the next. Because I know it's easy to miss some of these features. Like Miguel, you said with Chris Wagner on the last ones, like he was asking for a feature, like no, it's already there. It was just added last year, and I think I mentioned to Greg on the chat just now that yes, we already have the option to add a measure to a slicer in the new one, where you can have the title and a single measure below it. So I want to try to help fill the gap with those on people maybe missing a really powerful feature that might have gone under the radar for them. So that would be my plan once a quarter, is to kind of do a PBI Core Visuals recap, but get as much of those core community representatives on to make it very conversational and kind of a water cooler discussion on some of those. So
Yep.
we'll have one of those starting in March with at least a few other members from the core visual team. So look forward to that.
Perfect. I will try as well my best to bring some designers, because people have questions on the design aspect of the visualizations.
Yep.
They will be the best people to participate.
Exactly. Like what one person from either you or somebody from the team who can at least answer those questions. Somebody's in the chat of like, this is great, but what about X? It's like, well, I'll direct this question to this individual who will probably be better suited to answer timelines, yeses or nos, than us trying to remember a conversation. So that will be fantastic. But otherwise, I want to thank both of you for coming on. During the holiday season, especially, we're sandwiched between Christmas and New Year's. So thank you for this. Enjoy the rest of your Fridays and have a great New Year as well. And I'm sure I'll see either of you on one of those upcoming streams as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Red, for the invitation, and thank you, Alper, for being here with us.
Yeah. Thank you both. Thanks for
Excellent.
Happy New Year.
Have a great weekend. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.